Welcome back, everybody. It's another episode of The Mindful CEO. I'm your co-host, Chris Angell, here with our host, Aaron Hendon, and our guest, Alan Cahn. Hi, Alan.
Hello there.
Hi, Aaron.
Hi, Chris. Hey, I want to take a minute. I'm going to introduce Alan because Alan's my guest. He's my guest. I brought Alan. Very important. So Alan and I have known each other for a long time. When we both had hair. No, actually, I don't think I've ever seen Alan with hair. Alan and I go way back with our work with Landmark. I've known him since I moved to Seattle, which is now probably 23 years ago. And his beautiful, lovely, most important part of Alan's life is his wife, Catherine, and I were seminar leaders together for many years, and just adore Alan. And when we rebranded into this thing called the Mindful CEO, you and I were dealing with, I know mindfulness is a great business buzzword now, and it's got a lot of juice on it, and we liked the way it sounded, but I didn't know really anything about what it meant, or like to have integrity. What is mindfulness? And I don't really know why Alan came to mind as the person we wanted to talk to. I wanted to talk to you about it, but without a doubt, he did come to mind. Without a doubt, he was the person I would want to talk to about mindfulness. And so Alan's now, what is it? An evolutionary accelerator?
And a status quo disruptor.
And a status quo disruptor, right? Which is great, which is what he's always been for me. It's that's not some new expression. It may be a new moniker, but it's definitely not a new expression. And and so Alan, just really thanks for making the time. Thank you for being here. I just love you. And do you know why I would think of you when it came to mindfulness? I really do sort of want to start there.
Yeah. I think, about my number of times I've done 10-day silent meditation.
Yes.
Through the Vipassana organization. But, I think in our work together, when we were training people to be leaders, Aaron, a lot of what we didn't use the word mindfulness, and we didn't use the word presence, but a lot of what we knew it took to be a leader was to be present.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does that mean? To have all of your senses operational and be able to receive the messages you were getting through all of your senses, and then breathe in, and then breathe out, and then speak. We're when we're in the presence of someone who has presence, it resonates. We notice it, and our tendency to be doers, do machines, what is there to do, as opposed to we're human beings, what is there to be? So I think mindfulness, presence, being all resonate together. And I think I represent some of that to you.
Yeah, I think that's really, yes, it's accurate. And the thing about the Vipassana retreats, that always occurred for me, like, okay, that would be the most painful, torturous, least attractive thing I could do. Like never, like just on my never list, right? I don't know what that list is, the fuck it list. I'm never going to do that. And, but I started this teacher training, this mindfulness teacher training, and I'm just a teeny ways into it. But for the first time, it's like, oh, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Like for the first time, I've had the thought of, wow, I would just say nothing for 10 days and just be mindful that seems excessive. It still seems like that's an excessive amount of time. But for the first time ever, I had a thought of, oh, I get it. That really would be cool. So that is definitely a connection for it. We never use the word presence or mindfulness, but being present.
Yes.
Right. When you talk about transformation begins with what's so.
Yeah.
The what's so is just this in the moment.
Yeah.
Right. With no past and no future and just this moment. Yeah. And training ourselves to be present to this moment. That is, And then I think the other thing, Alan, is how fun you are. And I just think there's a real lightness that comes with being present when you're no longer shackled by the past or the future. And then in terms of, Alan, your work, so I know you're a professional business coach and that's what you do, and you work with CEOs, and you were sharing a little bit about the real estate professionals you've been working with in Canada. Talk a little bit about how you connect mindfulness to their productivity, their performance, their effectiveness in life.
Yeah. Before I do, Chris, is there anything you want to say, or yeah, two bald men talking is enough right now?
We need three bald men. This is the
Yeah,
three
exactly. Yes,
bald
there's
men
not too much here
episode.
for me either. No, I am totally in this conversation, and Aaron said a word last week in another community called emergent, and I feel like this conversation is very emergent. So
Perfect.
whatever shows up, I'm here to jump on.
That's great. So, I want to talk about Ellen Langer for a second. So she's I think was the first tenured female psychology professor at Harvard. And she's known, I don't know whether the term is godmother or something, of mindfulness. So she is emphatic. Mindfulness has nothing to do with meditation. You can meditate and you can be mindful, and maybe that nothing is an overstatement, but they're not synonymous. So she does not meditate, and she works with people to be mindful. And she says in any moment, we're either mindful or mindless. And she defines mindful as really being present. And, the tendency to knowing, like, I know what they're going to say. I know what's it's going to happen next. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know the way these people act. The tendency to know is the antithesis of being mindful. So she coaches people to be more mindful, not to sit, not to do Vipassana retreat. She says, fine, do it. But what everyday mindfulness for her is living with a sense of wonder, curiosity. So she'll say, when you look in the mirror in the morning, notice something about your face that you normally don't notice. Because in order to notice something that we normally don't see, we have to be present. When you're talking to your spouse, notice something about their face. When you're unlocking your car door, notice something about the paint. But in every moment, be curious and wondering. And, in terms of being successful, we all know that knowing what to do is not the answer to be.
It's definitely not the answer.
Every real estate agent knows what to do. List houses, get clients, do this, treat people with respect, knowing what to do. But being present in the moment opens up a different type of knowing. Opens you up to a different set of actions. If our actions are given by the information we have and by the experiences we have, the more we are present to what's happening in the moment, the more informed our actions will be, and maybe that will lead to more success.
All right, there's a lot to unpack there. I love that, Alan. So Elizabeth Langley, is that it?
Langer, L-A-N-G-E-R.
All right, great.
Yeah,
great. All right, because that's someone now.
Podcasts, TED Talks, books.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One other thing. So she did a study. This is where I came across her first, before I knew she was the godmother of mindfulness. She took a bunch of 60 or 70 or 80-year-old men out of a retirement community and brought them to a house. And the house was completely set up to replicate 1962. So it had pictures on the wall, magazines from 1962, TV shows that were playing.
I've heard about this.
Yeah. And the 10 men or 8 people or however many but there were, at the end of the 10 days or week that they spent in this house, their blood pressure was, she didn't teach them mindful. She just had them in the presence of different stimuli, which affected their immune system, all the markers of health, aging, everything was reversed. So we are, influenced by our environment. And to be mindful is to be present to what's in your environment, to really be to what's going on with the people you're talking to, what's going on with you as you're listening to them, and to really use all of that data to impact your actions.
I feels like this takes a lot of I was gonna say patience, and then it made me think mindfulness. It would take a lot of mindfulness to be mindful about how to be successful. How do I bring Aaron and I have an ongoing joke about 90 minutes. Our community is a 90-minute session every week. And for a while, Aaron didn't like 90 minutes. He felt like that was too long. But there's a thing that is just an anxious energy that runs in the background if I can't slow down and be with the stimuli in my surroundings, like you're speaking of, to be like, what is being said to me right now? What is the invitation in front of me to direct my actions forward?
Good. Yeah. I have this little I have a mindfulness bell app on my phone that rings at random times, 2 times an hour. I had it at 3 times an hour, but it's way too fucking much 3 times an hour for me. And it just, I just put it there so that it would stop me and I would take 3 breaths. And the amount of annoyance and irritation I have when it rings to interrupt, how dare it interrupt my thinking is insane to me, which is why I have it.
Or as one of our teachers used to say, my thoughting,
my thoughting,
my thinking. One thing, I was leading a landmark forum in Israel in 1997, and a colleague of mine said, for your recovery day, between the forum and the evening session, let's go to Egypt. Let's go to the desert. So we got on a plane and early in the morning and flew to Haifa and then went to the Sinai desert. And we spent a day in the desert. So a couple of things that were interesting, as what's called the taxi driver, which is just a guy driving a really old car that you bargain with to drive you at a regular speed. As he's driving in the desert and the Red Sea's on one side and the desert's on the other, there'd be these Bedouin just sitting not just sitting. And like, aren't they bored? But they're just sitting in the desert. And then we spent the day and played backgammon and ate fish, and we negotiate to go back to Israel, to Eilat, to get the plane from, I don't know if I said Haifa before, I meant Eilat, but we take the plane from Eilat back to Tel Aviv. We're driving, the sun is setting on one side, the Red Sea is on the other, and the taxi driver stops the car right on the road, half on the road, half off the road, and takes out his prayer mat and starts praying. And then he gets back in the car, and my friend spoke Arabic, and I said, ask him what that was like for him. And he said, it was so important. I do that 5 times a day. And I said, ask him why it was important. And he said, ever since you got in the car, I'm having these thoughts. I didn't charge you enough money. I'm going to have to drive an hour and a half back empty. I'm missing dinner with my wives and my children. This was a big mistake. And the moment I sat on my mat, I realized I was doing the will of Allah. He said, if I didn't do that 5 times a day, I'd be a crazy person. So for me, like you, Aaron, when I first got exposed to this notion of being present and how rarely I was present, I set alarms in my calendar. I decided, well, let's start with 5, 5 times a day, which sometimes wasn't enough. And now when I coach executives and even managers, I say only have 50-minute meetings or 25-minute meetings. So between each meeting, you can do those centering breaths. You can see what's present. Be mindful. Did you accomplish what you wanted to accomplish in that interaction? Did you not? What are you out to accomplish in the next one? Just to center yourself before the next activity, period. Full stop. Whatever you do, breath is an easy way to do it. Looking out a window at trees is another way to do it. Going for a walk, taking a few steps, anything that has you locate yourself in your senses. What's happening right now? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? How does my body feel?
I'm just curious, what, from where you sit and what you see, what would the world look like if people were in this kind of a practice collectively? If we were sort of in this kind of a practice, what do you see? What would it look like?
The words that come to mind are all the cliches, harmony, happiness, oneness, people being less reactive and more generative, people noticing their stuff versus someone else's stuff, less blaming, more responsibility. Yeah.
All from mindfulness. I mean, that's sort of what I'm getting at, is like all from being present and being
present,
mindful,
not mindless. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. That thing about, I was, so again, just in my taking on regular mindfulness practices, I've been a little bit, I was surprised and delighted, as we say, in noticing that wonder is directly connected to mindfulness. Like it'd be very difficult to imagine mindfulness without wonder. That those are not synonymous, but they're like sort of like front of the hand, back of the hand, feels like, or even just the doorway to being mindful is a question of, just not even a question, but just the question, what's happening? Like, that's like the doorway in to, and goes all the way back to the work that we've done together, Alan, through the work of Landmark to everything, I read as a teen growing up, from Alan Watts to the art of motorcycle maintenance to, that whole world. And then, Kale and I did this tantric retreat, a workshop at the end of May, and it's all the same stuff. It's non-striving. It's, letting go of an outcome, allowing yourself to be present, experience all the same stuff. It's one of those, all paths lead to the same destination. That was the will of Allah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
That's not, I would never say it that way. That would, right. It wouldn't be the way I say it, but the it is the same.
Yeah.
Whether you got there through 5 times a day with Allah, or you just sit and count breaths for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I love. And then I love that it's, becoming an executive kind of conversation.
Yeah. The other thought that comes to mind for me that is the term embodied. So it's not an intellectual, mindfulness isn't about it's not an intellectual process. It's not an emotional process. It's an embodied process. So you can feel it. You can feel the center of attention move from this place to your belly to wherever it is. It's an inclusive thing rather than exclusive. It expands what your awareness. It's an expansive practice, as it's a contradiction here. It's expansive as well as grounding. Yeah.
Well, that's the difference between focused and open mindfulness. Is
that
and either way is, going back and forth. It's not one. It's not one or the other. But yesterday I had this experience of awareness being like a wave or something I could control. Like it was, is awareness as a, I don't know, set of electrical impulses, as something, as a, like, oh, I could bring awareness to my feet. I could bring awareness. Like those kinds of practices are just amazing to me as an opportunity to, slow down and, especially Alan, there's some play, and I don't know what the connection is yet. And you might be able to speak to this, but, given our actions are a function of the way the world occurs, which is, I don't question that as a view. I think that's a valid, more than a valid view. I think it's an accurate view. Shifting, being able to control our awareness immediately impacts what I see there is to act on, which is, I think, what you were talking about in the beginning.
Yeah. I'm looking at the books that I keep close at hand. So this is one of them. Breath.
Oh, Nestor. Yeah.
Okay. Just a breath, because we're talking about it. And then this is an old classic, the corporate mystic, which is all about, you could say the mindful
Yes.
CEO, where they have the top 12 qualities that leaders need in order to provide breakthrough leadership. It's an old book, but it's been upgraded over the years. So those are two that I keep at hand. And then finally, there's a woman who's doing a lot of work at Microsoft, and she brought myself and some colleagues at the Henley Leadership Group to coach some of the senior managers at Microsoft. And it's just a 100-page book, and it's called, I think she lives on Bainbridge Island, Sarah Yao, Get Present. So simple, nothing spiritual, nothing mystical, nothing magical, just get present. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So the more we can demystify mindfulness, and it's simply into what it actually is, to give people access to it. I mean, we remember our basketball coach, the guy with the Bulls and then with the Lakers,
Phil Jackson.
Bill, I mean, he worked with the players on mindfulness.
I had forgotten that was the case, and that really is the case.
Had them sit in a circle, had them breathe together, had them do some substances together. Yeah.
If we could bridge for a second the conversation of being present and mindfulness, where I get a whole world of sitting and drumming and whatever mechanism you want to bring awareness to the moment. There's those kinds of practices. And then if I jump over here to the world of business, there are business practices, and there's, projections and year-over-year returns and goals and hustle culture. There's a lot. I'm curious, from where you sit, where does business and commerce meet mission and purpose?
Great. It's great. When I'm working in businesses, I want to coach them. I have about 7 criteria to work with a business. One is that they be the best in their field. And by being the best in their field, not by vanquishing the competition, but by elevating the field. 2, that people who work there say it's the best place they've ever worked, that the customers say it's the best customer service, that they produce a tremendous return to the shareholders, and the community where they're located is glad that they're there, and they do minimal harm to the environment. And those are companies that are mission driven and values based. And unless people are present or mindful, they will lose track of the mission, the vision, and the values. So that's number 1. Number 2, I coach people. I suggest that you start every meeting with 2 people, 3 people, 12 people, with checking in. The Henley Leadership Group uses the acronym PIES, PIES. Check in. What's present for you physically, intellectually, that's the I, emotionally, and spiritually. And we work with these executives who don't even have any idea what spiritual means. And we have them check in with pies, including,
Fuck,
hey,
that's so good.
but it takes like 2 minutes and everybody's checked in and you don't comment on each other's. And then you end with a declaration. You check in physically, intellectually, and then you say, and I'm in. And everybody says, and I'm in. And then you end the meeting with checking out with, not with the pies, but maybe one word. And then you say, and I'm out. So there's a clear, this was a business meeting. You're in for this meeting. You have the meeting. You're all present. And now you're out and you're on to what's next.
It's so good. This thing is a practice that we got from Tantra, but it's the same, absolutely the same vibe. And that's creating a bubble where when Cal and I sit down together, if we're going to spend any time together, which is intentional time we're going to spend together. And I mean, it's just all counts as intimate. It's all now intimate time because we're sitting and we create a bubble and we intentionally take things out of the bubble, which is checking in. Here we're taking out getting somewhere, we're taking out stress or worry, and then we're going to bring in, love and intimacy. We bring stuff in, and now we're in a bubble with the thing, none of the stuff we don't want, all the stuff we want. And it's the intention that matters there. That you're intentionally stopping.
A couple, something else about that?
Well, the other thing is when we're done, you pop the bubble.
Oh, pop the bubble. Yeah. Chris, I stayed up late last night to watch the soccer game. With the women, American women's soccer.
Got lucky there, man. Jeez, got lucky there
against Portugal. And I'm watching, and I think each team has a strategy. To go back to what you're talking about business, they all had a strategy. I hope. I mean, what are they doing in practice? If they're not having some sort of strategy.
Well, we all watch Ted Lasso. We know there's a strategy.
And you could look to see presence. Were people in the zone when they were executing the strategy? And my experience in watching the team from Portugal is those women, and everybody says, they played above their prediction. They were present in a way that the American team did not appear from the get-go present. They were doing something, but there was a lack of presence. So to get back to business, you got to come up with a great strategy. But great strategy alone won't make a business successful. Then there's execution. And to execute a strategy, if you're mindfully executing a strategy rather than mindlessly executing a strategy, I think you'll see different results.
I love that.
And it's good because this is, we talk about with Jeff and Richard in the autonomy course too, but we walk into businesses, we all do this, walk into businesses, and the mission statement's on the wall. Right? There it is. There's our mission statement, or better, or not even better, or more accurately, at the same time with the exact same effect, it's in a binder at HR.
And I was working today with the executives of a company, 5 executives, and I'd worked with them in person. And what we did for the first meeting, again, Chris, getting back to how do you integrate this? I had them put I made a slide with all of their values, 6 values. They read the values. Then I had them rate themselves, using 1 to 5. To what degree do they embody the values? And to what degree does the team embody the values? Period. And then we saw where the biggest gap was, and that's what we went to work on first. And, a word we're all familiar with on this call is integrity. And that's where there was the biggest gap. So we've been working now for 2 months on not how do you elevate other people's integrity, but how do we elevate the integrity of the team, the leadership team. And then once they're elevated and they're at least a 4.5 or whatever, then we can push it out into the company.
It's practices that keep us present to the purpose. We invented the real estate, Christine and I's, the team, the purpose, I forgot even what the moniker for it is, but it's the purpose is creating connections that bring forth the miraculous.
Beautiful.
And that's what we do is, so in every call and every meeting, it's, are we creating connections that bring forth the miraculous, or are we slinging houses here?
And now and I assert, if you're not mindful or you're not present, I'll use those words interchangeably now.
Mhm.
You don't know whether that's a memory, a thought, a slogan, or is it using you in the present?
Right?
And it won't.
That's right.
And maybe mindfulness is how quickly do you catch yourself when you're off, so that you can return to being true to your purpose, to your mission.
Which is again, that's every modality of training that we've participated in.
Yes.
Has that same, you're not going to be it by default.
Yeah.
It's not going to, this is now my favorite Daniel Kahneman, we are not thinkers. We are designed to avoid thinking. We are system 2 amygdala thinkers. We're not going to think by default ever. The design of a human being is to not think, is to take shortcuts, is to survive. That's the design. And where, this is all, it's not compensatory. It's all the opportunity.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
That's right. It's not, that's
There's
right.
nothing wrong with that. The 6 things I now have on my little Post-it that I'm looking above my screen. Listen to your gut. Okay, you got to be present. Follow your heart. Use your head. Those 3 things, those are all, you can't do that unless you're present.
Right.
You have to name it to tame it.
Ooh,
You have to name the pattern that gets in the way if you're going to intervene in it. Otherwise, it's just happening. Then you have to name it to claim it. You have to name what you're aspiring to. And then finally, from, working with people with trauma, you have to feel it to heal it. I like things simple.
Yeah.
That's good.
Great mnemonics,
Because
Alan.
I think life is simple. Yeah.
Name it to claim it, name it to tame it, feel it to heal it.
Feel it to heal it. Use your head, follow your heart, listen to your gut. Now, I am not the originator of any of those. I am
Right.
propagator.
Yeah, propagator.
Yeah, propagator.
Accelerator.
Accelerator.
Evolutionary accelerator, dude.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Maybe you could speak to that. I mean, I feel like we're kind of on the second half of the last third of our conversation here, but if you thought, like you had said before we hit record, that one of the ways that you describe yourself or others describe you as an evolutionary accelerator. I'm curious what is that? What does that do?
And scientists who have studied evolution and study it tell me that's the wrong word. that evolution isn't necessarily positive.
Right.
But I have this view that we as human beings are evolving. It's a view. I don't have a lot of evidence for it right now, but that we're evolving, and that you, Chris, me, and Aaron, and millions of others are part of an evolutionary wave. Mm-hmm. That wave exists independent of us, and we are part of that wave. And I want to be the best bubble on that wave that I can be. And I want to be able to support others and in evolving from that mindless to mindful. Full stop. So that's what it means, is supporting those things that seem to be in the best interest of humanity rather than in the best interest of one's ego.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Love that.
I just had that image, Alan, of the, you talk about a wave, you can't separate a drop of water from the wave and pretend that there's no wave in there, but that's what the wave is that water. And so where are you in that wave? You are that wave. And whether you took that drop of water out or not, the wave would exist.
And our teachers are part of that wave. The people we're teaching are part of that wave. We're all part of that wave, either perhaps this is now a little bit poetic, whether we know it or not.
Right. And that's the great thing to ponder, right?
Yeah. I'm remembering Werner in the beginning when he started the Hunger Project, where how do you make the end of death by starvation an idea whose time has come? And he said the first thing we have to include are the people who say it can't be done. They're part of the movement. We're all part of the movement. If we can't embrace and work with the people, we have to listen to them, because whatever they're saying, we got to deal with, rather than, oh, they don't belong. And that's hard to do in this day of polarization, where we see so many things happening that we are appalled by, to know that we're all part of this wave.
I was listening to Esther Hicks this morning, as I do. I listen to Esther Hicks every morning. And the quote that stood out for me is, she's talking about unconditional love. And, mostly it's in, I don't need the conditions of the world to be any particular way for me to love my life. I don't just, or I have conditional love, which is you have to be a particular way for me to be happy. But in this case, what I heard this morning was, she was saying, I love you so much, I don't care what you think. My love is unconditional. You can think what you think. I love you now, she was talking about a different context, but I heard it in terms of the polarized, political climate we live in, that my love is unconditional. Not dependent on what you think.
Yes.
You can think whatever you want.
Yes.
And it's not going to impact how much I love you.
Yeah, it's great.
And I thought that's a radical approach to life.
Yeah.
There's an idea whose time has come.
Yeah.
Like that.
Wow.
All right. Well, Alan, I think that's a good place to put a pin in it. One of the things, just to reiterate for anyone, for the 5 people that are listening, when we get to 12, we decided we're going to start editing. So watch out, share this with your friends, because when this gets edited, it'll be so much better than this. But one of the contexts for this whole thing is that, the name is the Mindful CEO, but it's not just, this was a particularly business oriented conversation, and useful certainly in that context. And CEO is also, we're all CEOs of our lives. We are all the source and the power and the effectiveness inside whatever it is we're up to. We always have the opportunity to be the CEO of whatever it is we're doing, take responsibility and be the one in charge. So if anything is useful from this, if you find something in this that's useful for empowering you for that, that was the intention.
Great. And if it wasn't useful, ignore it.
Ignore it. Totally ignore it. That was Alan's fault. We won't have him back. So there you go.
Exactly.
Alan, if people want to learn more about where you are, how to reach you, how to connect with you, how can people reach out?
Physically, I'm in Portland, Oregon, and Alan at alancahn.com is how to reach me. ALANCAHN.com. Yeah, and I also work. I'm part the group that the coaching group that I'm part of, in addition to Alan Cahn Consulting, is called the Henley Leadership Group, and they're headquartered up in Seattle. Yeah,
fabulous.
What a beautiful conversation. Thank you for being here today.
Yeah.
Alan, thanks so much.
Great to talk.
I know why I thought of you first.
It's great to talk with both of you.
It's great.
All right.
All right. Peace.